Broadcasting from the Business RadioX studio in Nashville, Tennessee, it's time for Regions Business Radio Nashville. Regions Business Radio Nashville is presented by Regions Bank. Brave the beginning. Member FDIC.
Welcome to Regions Business Radio Nashville, presented by Regions Bank, member FDIC. I'm your host, Kelley Kee, Executive Vice President with Regions, and we are broadcasting live from our Business RadioX studio set up inside the JW Marriott in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome to this series of podcasts here in Nashville. As Regions was kind of thinking about ways to communicate with our customers and our communities, we kind of came to the decision to use this platform to help educate and promote awareness of several interesting topics and key issues that are impacting businesses and the people of Nashville. So thank you for spending the next several minutes with us today. And many of you may know, Regions Bank has been a part of Nashville well over 100 years, beginning with the headquartered bank that was First American Bank. I have been with Regions for just over 23 years, including starting with First American Bank through AmSouth and now Regions Bank. Been in Nashville here for the last 19 years. As part of our bank, Regions has some key basic values, 5 key basic values that we use to operate our company on a daily basis. As part of our corporate mission of creating shared value for our customers, our shareholders, and our communities, we place these basic values at the center of our strategies. And the decisions we make are intentionally designed to help achieve this mission. Regions is extremely active in the community of Nashville as well as the surrounding communities. From our contributions of money to several local nonprofit organizations to our donation of time for our associates to serve in various capacities over their favorite organizations. Regions is committed to serving all of the Middle Tennessee communities, not just Nashville. Which brings us to the topic we will be discussing today, affordable housing for the great number of people in need in our area. As I was driving in today, and as I've heard for many days as I'm driving in, there are several commercials on the radio about making sure we can leverage the highest home values in years, how you can sell your home in less than one day, how you can take advantage of all the equity because we are at the highest home values in history. While as a homeowner, these are very good problems for us to have, it does certainly create a challenge. What if you're not a homeowner today? What if you're in an apartment? What if you're trying to buy your first home? How are we going to be able to have people who can't afford this level of prices? Or even worse, can I even earn high enough income that I can afford to rent? So today we have a couple of special guests with us who will be joining us that will discuss what some of these challenges are and how their organization is attempting to help resolve some of these issues. We have Brent Elrod, Executive Director of Urban Housing Solutions, and Alicia Haddock, Vice President of the Housing Fund. Brent and Alicia, welcome.
Thank you.
Regions has been fortunate to have worked with these two organizations for several decades now, and certainly appreciate your involvement with both of these organizations and the services that you guys provide to our customers and our communities. So, Brent, why don't we just start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Urban Housing Solutions, and Alicia, same for you.
Thanks, Kelley.
Sure.
So Urban Housing Solutions was started in 1991 in Nashville to address, at that time, really the lack of permanent supportive housing for people who are homeless. And our genesis really is, and our mission today is really to try to address unmet housing needs in Nashville. So in the 1990s, that was predominantly in Nashville, people who were experiencing homelessness or who had other challenges finding affordable housing or really limitations on their income, because in the 90s in Nashville and even through the 2000s, affordable housing was really an acute problem for folks with very low or extremely low incomes in Nashville. The point you're talking about in this podcast today is about how our affordable housing problem has really expanded, dramatically to include low, moderate, middle income earners, people who are unable to buy a home, even though, 10 years ago they would have had no problem probably in Nashville. So our work has evolved as well over the last 30 years, but our mission still continues to be to try to address Nashville's unmet housing needs by providing affordable homes in supportive communities. So that's really what we're about. And today we have about 1,300 apartments in Nashville. We manage most of those ourselves, and we have a team of service coordinators to help connect our residents with other, services and supports in the community to help, again, provide that supportive solution.
Perfect. Thank you, Brent. Alicia, what about Affordable Housing Group?
All right. Thanks, Kelley. So the Housing Fund is a private nonprofit 501c3 CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. We were created in 1996, so we just celebrated our 25-year anniversary. And the Housing Fund has assisted over 3,800 first-time home buyers receive over $30 million in down payment assistance loans, as well as provided more than $58 million in financing to assist individuals and organizations purchase, rehabilitate, or construct homes for low and moderate income families. So, in total, the Housing Fund has provided over $88 million in lending capital, which has leveraged over $440 million in private financing for more than 6,800 units of affordable housing. So we eat, sleep, and breathe affordable housing in the state of Tennessee.
Well, that is perfect and certainly a very much needed product. So why don't we dig into it a little bit? I know we were talking about some of the statistics of who needs affordable housing, how many numbers we've talked about. Brent's got 1,300 units that he manages. So, tell us a little bit about what's the overarching need in Nashville and why Nashville? Why is it so important here?
Yeah, I think the need is so great. Affordable housing is a common issue now, right? It's not just about poor people or, putting people in a box. It's more about our public servants, our teachers, our firefighters, people who we rely on to help our city run, that really kind of makes Nashville, our great state of Tennessee, it is who we are, the fabric of who we are. So now when we're talking about affordable housing, it's not, public housing. It's one of those buzzwords that people immediately think about. Well, what are they talking about here? We're talking about the core, the fabric of our communities. And so, when we look at that affordable housing task force that was assembled last summer, and that data that they put in saying that we need 53,000 units by 2030, that really was very eye-opening, right? And then they broke it down even more, saying we needed 18,000 of those units for 80% area median income individuals and families. That was even more eye-opening because it gave us a really good indication of where we are now, but where we need to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that these definitions of affordable housing are notoriously slippery or kind of overlapping. That I think if you ask somebody what does affordable housing mean, you probably get about at least five different answers to the question. But I think increasingly as a community, as we've begun to understand our needs a little better, I think we've got a little more alignment, at least among the housing providers like the Housing Fund, Urban Housing, and the other nonprofits that we work with, that really when we're talking about affordable housing, quote unquote, it is predominantly for folks who are making less than 80% of the median income. And Alicia referred to that a minute ago. That's an individual making about $48,000 a year or less, which is, obviously not a low income, but it is technically, quote unquote, low income according to HUD standards. So that's really where we see the most significant, and historically have always had the most challenges for the market really meeting that affordable housing need. Historically, it was even, not an issue really in Nashville for folks who are making, anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000 to $48,000 a year. But especially in the last 3-4 years, even though we've had a lot of apartments developed in Nashville and, builders are building homes for sale, almost none of that is affordable to people who are making that $48,000 a year income or less if they're, on their own, or, if they've got a family. I'm sure it's even tougher. So, our organizations, we're really committed to trying to address that need for folks that are under the 80 AMI, so-called 80 AMI, income threshold. Really, there's a need even higher than that. It's just not, it's not something that urban housing really is focused on, but we're just really concentrating our effort on the most acute need and where we think we can have the most impact, really, to try to, again, provide those affordable homes and supportive communities. Because as Alicia was saying, really our whole economy, really not just in Nashville, but countrywide, is now built more on services and, hospitality and just, it's a service economy now. So a lot of these service jobs, people can't find employees because employees can't afford to live anywhere near where they work, so our whole economy, if we're not able to really provide affordable housing for folks who are in the service sector, they won't They won't want to commute to Nashville for an hour and a half away to work at a job that they could maybe find 20 minutes away from where they live, And so it threatens our long-term economic success as a city and, our prosperity overall as a community.
Yeah, especially when you factor in, $4 plus for a gallon of gas. If you're driving 50, 60 miles to get to work, you're probably working the first 2 to 3 hours of every day just to pay for your gas to and from.
Yeah, just for the round trip.
It's exactly right. And so, Nashville being built on hospitality, built on service, built on tourism, particularly having those workers available is what's going to continue to drive our economy.
Yep.
So, Alicia, you mentioned 58,000 needed affordable homes. How many do we have today in inventory? Will we have in Nashville?
So we have about 300,000 or so, something like that. And so to add that number by 2030, we have to keep that housing stock up that we currently have since about 2019 when they got that data, and then add to it, right? And so it's very important to think not only strategically but creatively. Right? How do we keep the housing stock that we have now, and then how do we grow it? And I think it's not just the government's problem or it's just, nonprofits ity. I think it's a problem that we all have to collectively put our heads together and try and figure out. Everybody kind of looks at it like this, 800-pound gorilla that is affordable housing. But how do we strategically and creatively tackle, this in our different industries? Private, public, government, and what can we do collectively to make this work, right? For-profit developers, nonprofit developers, what is it that we can do to create more affordable housing, and then just across the spectrum? Because we understand that, Brent had mentioned, we are looking at different AMIs, right? So you have 30%, but it could go all the way up to 120%, especially if we're talking about home ownership, and then we cannot leave out renters. I remember when we were dealing with the March 3rd, 2020 tornadoes, and a light bulb went off, in Nashville, when we realized that 40%, I think it was, of Nashvillians were renting. Right? And so it was just, kind of like this, light bulb moment when we realized that not only, did we feel like we owned more of Nashville, but we really didn't. And then we understood that we have to creatively tackle this affordable housing in a more creative way.
Yeah, one of the things that, as we were talking last week, that really struck me is that, and I really hadn't thought about it in this vein before, but the natural thing is you say, well, just go build more apartments. Well, somebody has to do that, right? So you've got to have a builder who's willing to go build affordable housing. But guess what? Home Depot, Lowe's, they're not really giving you a discount on that lumber. Yeah. They're not giving you a discount on steel prices. Labor is certainly not working for free. So, in order to do those things, there's a lot of intricacies that have to happen in order to make that a viable opportunity. So, talk a little bit about then, we've talked a little bit about the need, but how are you guys helping to kind of fulfill that, and where are some of your biggest opportunities today? And one of the things I do want you to talk about is what are the pressures on you guys to retain the affordable housing we have today? We've got units, and Brent can detail a story that he and I worked on, to where these were our affordable housing units that are now being renovated into very upscale apartment/condos. So talk a little bit about that. So Brent, I don't know if you want to maybe talk about that story or.
Yeah, I was going to say, in addition to building additional affordable housing to try to meet the gap that Alicia was talking about, the 53,000 unit gap by 2030 that's projected. That also assumes no change in the loss of affordable housing that exists today. So, in other words, if we start to lose more existing apartment communities or, maybe smaller single family homes to tear downs, or in the case of apartment communities, when they get bought and flipped by out-of-state equity investors, who are seeking a return on their capital, which is not inherently bad, but if there's not efforts made also at the same time to preserve some of those existing affordable, they're called naturally occurring affordable housing, NOAA, apartment communities, then we're growing that gap wider, and we're just not maybe aware of it, real time. So urban housing, we've been trying to, if where possible, at least be able to, it's called preserving affordable housing that exists today, and it's obviously a decreasing supply, but we were proud to work with Regions on this acquisition of 2 apartment communities near the airport that were so-called NOAA, naturally occurring. They were relatively affordable. They had not really been substantially renovated in 30, 40 years, so they had not been pushed to the absolute maximum that the rent could actually be achieved in that neighborhood. So they were relatively affordable, and through an acquisition loan through Regions, and then with this federal low-income housing tax credit program, which is the most substantial source for affordable housing development and preservation in the country now, we're able to take these two properties through this conversion, LIHTC conversion, and preserve them as affordable for 30 years or more. And like you said, Kelley, renovate and upgrade the apartments in the process, but most importantly, keep the people in that apartment community that may have lived there for 5, 10, 20 years maybe. So it really helps promote community stability, and it critically shores up our affordable housing stock in the community so that we're not actually slipping behind what's already a pretty, daunting goal to reach 53,000 additional affordable units in Nashville. So preservation is every bit as important as production or new construction. But that latter part is also critical, and I know the Housing Fund's doing great things to create new affordable housing too.
You're right, Brent. It's that creation and the preservation, right? And so you mentioned NOAA, naturally occurring affordable housing, and really how do we keep that housing stock that we currently have? And so what we did is we created the Housing Resiliency Fund. It's a property tax relief grant, and so not only did we create it for homeowners, we expanded it to landlords, right? And so we understood that property taxes were, going up. And so how do we keep that rental stock up? Because it was just as important, right, for us to keep renters in affordable places and for rents to stay at an affordable rate. And so now we are providing property tax relief for small landlords and nonprofit organizations with 1 to 50 units, right, that'll provide affordable rents. And so that's that creative leadership, that is needed in this affordable housing space, because understanding that creation and preservation it's needed, like I was saying a little bit earlier, not only for nonprofits, but for private institutions and for government, for all of us to work together. But it's going to take all of us to do it and really think of creative ways to get this done, and really to tackle affordable housing in a way where we can save the units that we have, preserve them, and then also create affordable housing. And especially in some of these new projects that we hear about, making sure that affordable housing is inserted or a part of some of these larger projects, because the need is so great.
Yeah, I think as Brent mentioned, on those two units, I think there were 165 families that are living there today. And if you think about all the pressures that everybody has, right, whether it's getting kids to school on time or getting dinner, or if we've got, two parents working, or maybe it's a single parent household, if you think about all the pressures that they're under on a daily basis, the last thing that they need to add on top of that is, oh my gosh, now I don't have any place to live. And so, with Brent's help, with urban housing, Regions, again, through uses of some of our community investment tax credits opportunities that we have, we just kind of said, not today. You may have something to worry about tomorrow, but it's not going to be housing, not today, not with us. And so that really brings me kind of, as we start to wrap up, I want you to tell me a little bit about more of a call to action. So, a lot of businesses will be listening to this, a lot of individuals will be listening to this. What can we do? I mean, what can those people do? They may not work at a bank, or they may not, work at a nonprofit. What can the individual do to kind of help out in this scenario?
I was thinking about that, and we all have, we want to do something about some of these issues, but they're so big, right? And we're like, well, what can little old me do about something as big as affordable housing? First of all, you can stay informed, right? Know what's going on in the community. If you don't even have to live in Nashville, but you may commute here because you work in Nashville, stay up on the issues and really, a lot of times we spend most of our days at work. How can you get involved? How can your workplace get involved? Really kind of pushing, those issues, especially with housing. We can go round and round about what housing is and what it should be and is it a right? And, we can go on about this. But really, it really speaks to really our core beliefs and values. What do you believe? And if it's something that you believe in, stay informed about it. But then also, if you have the power, at your place of business, see about investing in affordable housing, right? What is your commitment? What can you do? And so I think once you kind of get there and really analyze the space that you're in, then you make an informed decision, because I know one thing, if nothing else, there is a lot of work to be done. And I think collectively we can tackle this issue that seems so much bigger than all of us. But just knowing that the opportunity is there.
Yeah, I want to certainly build on that and echo that for sure, Alicia. And the this idea that we are connected as a community is essential to me personally, and I think a lot of us really have that sense under it all, that we're really all part of this Nashville community or the Middle Tennessee community. And being informed is a big part of being able to support affordable housing, to be aware of opportunities where maybe there's some additional, like a zoning to entitle a piece of property for more apartments or, more townhomes or condos or new construction, development. I think zoning is one of those critical battles that often gets fought that usually ends up resulting in, it's a missed opportunity basically for affordable housing, or at least for additional housing stock, which helps to overall support affordable housing. The more supply we have, the more we can meet the demand, and that helps to keep prices, more affordable at the end of the day. So I think being informed is a big part of it, and being supportive of, providing additional housing opportunities pretty much at every level, because everybody's better off that way, obviously. I think that's a big part of what all of us can do individually, even without, maybe even contributing $1 to any of the great nonprofits in Nashville, doing good work on this issue. I think just being supportive of adding more affordable housing or just more residential density in and around Middle Tennessee is something that everybody can really do to help meet the need. Alicia talked about creativity, and I think that's increasingly necessary in the very expensive market that we're in now. Rising construction costs, land costs. It's really challenging especially to develop affordable housing, and it's going to take. Alicia touched on it. I think corporate partners, non-traditional, I'll call it non-traditional, supporters of affordable housing. We have a great local housing trust fund in Nashville that the city's, expanding. The Barnes Trust Fund is doing really impactful things. And I know we have some major corporations that are like Regions and others who are really stepping up to invest in affordable housing. Our foundation community has helped to really step up and support affordable housing in partnership with Regions and UHS on this one project. So I think there are ways we can build on that collaboration, really, to really put it in put that word into action and have a real, impact. I think that's what it's going to take.
And thank you, Regions, for your commitment, to the community, to Nashville, to the housing fund, being one of our largest investors, our largest investor. We appreciate that, and it's felt through our work, and that creative leadership. It's needed. And I think, we all have an opportunity at this present time to flex those creative muscles, right, around affordable housing and how we get it done, not only in Middle Tennessee, in the state. We are now, we have projects in Memphis and Chattanooga, and we're having conversations in Knoxville and Johnson City. And so it's not just a Middle Tennessee problem. We are now, across the state. And so how we move about, how we creatively, look at down payment assistance, commercial development, shared equity, the community land trust, right? I think it's going to be critically important, not only for today, but for tomorrow.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think to kind of wrap it up, I mean, the one thing I would tell all of our listeners is really the only wrong decision you can make is to make no decision. So let's get involved. Let's make sure we're doing everything we can to support the community and the people in it. So again, thank you guys for coming on today. Brent Elrod, Urban Housing, Alicia Haddock with the Housing Fund. Certainly very important topic, and we greatly appreciate the work that you guys are doing on a daily basis. In closing, again, thanks for that. And I want to thank our listeners for listening to Regions Business Radio Nashville, presented by Regions Bank, member FDIC. You can enjoy all of our episodes anytime by visiting BusinessRadioX.com and selecting the Nashville studio, and then click on Regions Business Radio. This program is available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. Please be sure to subscribe to the program so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And thanks again.
Regions Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.